All right, thanks for joining. In this call, we're going to go over the process for creating a B2B case study. So let's first define what we mean by a B2B case study. I'll bring an example of a simple PDF onto the screen here. These are sometimes called customer success stories. It's where you share one client's experience working with you. So they're not super long form. They're the real business case. They're a proof point for why a client opts to work with you and what the ROI is for them. And these assets are really important for your website, for your marketing process, for your sales process. It's not that complicated that if you're selling to businesses, the most important content you can show your prospects is just real results you've achieved for other clients like them. Now, a lot of companies know this, but they struggle to create this content. So my company, Success Kit, we've developed a process, and all we do is execute case studies like I just showed you for B2B companies. Now, we've decided in this video series, we're going to share our process for creating them. So if you want to try to learn to do this yourself, we're going to share our secrets from creating hundreds of these case studies. If you want to see the rest of these videos, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel, but I'm not sure quite how permanent it is. So the best way is to go to our website, successkit.io, and subscribe to our newsletter where we will release the next videos. So this first video is going to be an overview to the entire process. It's going to be about 10 minutes long. We're going to go through each step, and then subsequent videos are going to drill down into each step and talk about some of the different challenges you'll face and some of the best practices that we've developed. So as you're going through this, if you need help with your case studies, or if you have any questions or just want someone to do the case studies for you, this is all we do. I personally manage every case study that we handle. So if you're a B2B company that needs to get case studies done, go to successkit.io if you want our help, or watch the rest of this video to try it on your own and subscribe for future videos. With that said, let's dive into the process. So let's start by talking about setup. Obviously, first you need to select the client that you're going to profile. This should, of course, be a client you have a great relationship with, someone you've really already achieved results for. Especially if this is your first case study, it shouldn't be too hard to find someone willing to participate. Once you've identified the client, you want to get their permission to use their company name and logo, if at all possible. You don't want to begin the case study until you know whether or not they're going to let you do that. If you need to use their name and logo, the last thing you want to do is spend the time creating a case study and find out at the end that they're not going to approve use of their name and logo. Now, what we do is we document it in writing for all of our clients. As you can see here, we have permission to use their company name and logo before we begin any project. You can certainly do this, or you can just do it by email, but we highly recommend getting something in writing stating that they're going to let you use this content once you create it. After you've gotten permission from the client, you want to collect all of the information that you have internally. And what I mean by that is you want to first speak to the account manager who manages that account to understand what you should already know about that client, any results they've achieved, and get that in writing from the account manager. Next, you want to bring this to the key stakeholders in your company, perhaps your VP of marketing, perhaps your VP of sales, and even the C-suite, to get their perspective on what needs to be mentioned or focused on in the case study. As we're going to talk about, the majority of the content really should come from your client, but you want to understand if there's any internal initiatives that you should know about so you can guide the case study accordingly. Once you've got that, the case study is set up and it is time to move to the interview. So when you set up the interview with your client, you can do this by email, and also once you get on the phone with that client, you want to set expectations. So you want to tell them about how long you're going to need. It should be about 15 minutes for the interview. And you want to explain to them that they're going to get a chance to review and approve the content before it goes anywhere. That's going to really put them at ease because they know that they can kind of speak openly knowing that they're going to get final say on what's published. Now, when it comes to developing the content in the interview, we would recommend you follow a very basic format. We didn't invent this format ourselves, but it is best practices for a case study to follow the format of having a summary of the case study at the top, where the case study itself goes through the problem, then the solution, and then the results. It's pretty straightforward. So to begin, start to ask the case study subject questions about what they're struggling with before working with you. What led them to decide to work with you? Perhaps if they're willing to talk about it, problems they were having with other vendors or handling things internally. This is going to develop the content for the problem or the situation section. Next is the solution. Now, you probably already know a lot about the solution you provide for that client, but it's really important to get their perspective. They may say things not quite as precisely as you can describe your solution, but the way that they say it is really important. So even if you feel like you know the answers to these questions, walk them through how they use your product or solution on a day-to-day level, how it makes their life easier. Find out how they talk about it and document those quotes. Finally is results. So this is perhaps the most important part, and you shouldn't expect your clients to already have things defined numerically for how you help them. It's your job to help them set that up. We often do this before the interview, but even on the interview, it's important as well. You may need to guide them. You may need to suggest certain savings they've achieved or growth they've achieved. This is where your preparation comes into play because if they can't immediately speak to results, you want to be able to refer to things you know about to ask and see if they're willing to commit to those results and how they're comfortable describing it. We're actually going to have another video about results, both defining them in the interview process and then how to display them in the case study. But moving on for now, do your best with the results. You should know what results your product achieves and ask about it. So now that the interview is held, it's time to draft the case study. Some basic guidelines for writing the case study. And again, we're going to have an entire video about the writing style that makes the most sense. But really briefly, you want to focus on the client and you want to use a neutral tone. And what I mean by that is you don't want to say things like, we as the best phone provider implemented a new system to save this client 25%. Instead, it's this client saves 25% by upgrading their phone system and relying on XYZ phone provider, whatever the case. The focus is on the client. The tone is neutral. It shouldn't sound like you're bragging about yourself. Let's talk again about the structure. So I'm going to bring up another example of a case study that we've done. And we always recommend, if you can, starting with a one-sentence overview. This summarizes the case study in one sentence. It should be the most powerful way that you can describe this story and the narrative. So write this after. Write out the problem. Write out the solution. This one has an extra section describing the process, and you can see the results displayed numerically. Write that out, look at it, understand what that narrative is and how to say it best in one sentence, and put that in nice big letters at the top. Like I keep saying, we're going to have another video dedicated to this, but hopefully that gives you a surface level of how to think about writing the case study. Okay, so now you've written the case study. So we're right here in the process. It's been drafted, and it's time to design the case study. So as you can see, we have all different templates. We've done hundreds of case studies. Some of them are more simple and have an article feel like this. They'll have the case study subject image with a quote attached to it. Others are a little more marketing-y, like this. It really all depends on your brand and your style. If you need help with this, go to successkit.io. We can help you with the design. See if you have internal templates for a 1 or 2 pager that you can start with. If you have to create it from scratch, use a professional. This is 2 pages documenting your client's most important results. It needs to look great. So if you don't have something in place, we recommend using a professional. And again, we can certainly help with that. I also want to point out from the design, I'll jump back into that example momentarily, but this speaks to both the writing style and the design, that it's all about quotes, whether it's pulling out a quote that sort of summarizes this thing and highlighting it. I think everyone knows to do that. In this particular one, we have a quote with each section, which is certainly a good option, but not mandatory by any means. But not just pulling out quotes to highlight them. The case study itself should integrate quotes. Our case studies are about 30% quotes. Again, you really want to share not your perspective, but the client's perspective. So quotes are really key here. All right, let's go back into the process here. So the case study is designed. Let me move my image over there. Okay. So now it's designed, and it's time to get final approvals. So the first thing you want to do is bring it back to the case study subject, your client. They get to review it first. Tell them you want to make sure we got everything right. See if they have any edits or change requests. Once you implement them and get their sign off on the content, you can bring it to your internal stakeholders, see if they have feedback. If it's major feedback, you'll want to bring it back to the case study subject again for a final review. But that shouldn't happen if you're following a process like ours. There shouldn't need to be too many edits here because you've gone through each step to make sure you're collecting and documenting the right information. Once it's approved by your client and your internal stakeholders, it is time to publish your case study. You can put it on your website, give it to your sales team, put it in marketing campaigns. There's all different things you can do with a case study. It is your most powerful marketing content. Well, that wraps up this overview. I hope this was helpful. If you need help with your case studies, you can go to successkit.io and just book a meeting with me directly right there. We're a small company. All we do is case studies. I personally handle the account and project management. So you'll be working with me directly. I'll make sure all your case studies are good. If you want to do it yourself, subscribe to our newsletter. We're going to go into all of the details that you may need in order to create a great case study, focusing on each step that we went over here. My personal contact information, julian@successkit.io. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. Happy to share it. Happy to answer it if I can. Also share this with anyone who you think might benefit. Well, thanks again, and we'll see you for the next one.